Welcome to the second presentation in the Ethical Challenge series, Honesty Before Universality. At an executive away day, Chris Plato, the British Savings Bank's Chief Ethics Officer, briefs product development executives and their customer advisory panel on the evolution of the bank's fair treatment strategy. We've long ago learned how best to define and manage our customers' great wish list. We're keenly aware how much they want from us as bankers. They want a lot. Fantastic savings products at great rates, a range of loan products at very low rates. They want high-quality financial advice. But what we need to ask ourselves is, what is the fair price for these services? Many of us will remember the tradition 10 to 15 years ago, grounded in the expectation by retail customers that their banking services were free. They never were, of course. No interest was paid on current account balances, but those customers who were less good at managing their finances were effectively subsidising those who didn't incur high overdraft fees or our admin charges. We always knew that. But for years we'd allowed ourselves to sustain the pretence, despite feeling very uncomfortable about it. Post-crisis, we bankers gradually became braver about dispensing with this fiction. The first movers in our industry did away with the teaser rates, but it was by no means universal, and high overdraft charges were always a constant source of friction. The bravest banks, however, broached the tricky subject of current account fees. Of course, it took time for both the banks and customers to accept the ethics of this new partnership. For us as bankers, we needed to be fully transparent about our charges, and for customers, they needed to accept that they no longer got anything for apparently nothing. Some banks persisted in the conviction that retail account charges couldn't be made without a raft of notional added extra giveaways to sugar the pill. That was until the regulators started taking an interest in package accounts, and customers, not surprisingly, after years of thinking they were banking with no apparent charges, they took time to get comfortable with the knowledge that they have to pay for the banking services they used. And let's not forget that this trail had been blazed years before with business banking customers. As an industry, we'd long ago persuaded companies that our banking services were worth paying for. Now at last, we finally convinced retail customers that it's also fair for them to pay for their banking services. For both, what's been fundamental to this transformation is today's widespread acceptance of the principles of stewardship, prudence, and professionalism as anchors of fair treatment. For us bankers, it's about treating customers as individuals we know we can lose to a competitor. Keeping them as our customers has meant accepting we're custodians of their wealth, and we will always put our customers' interests first, just as we expect doctors to be custodians of their patients' health. We have a duty of care to our customers that we take very seriously. Post-crisis, we knew we'd be less profitable in the short term, but we had to rekindle trust before we could grow securely in the long term. And we knew we'd only achieve that trust once we were no longer saddled with paying back huge sums in customer redress for mis-selling, which amounted to £20 billion. But our customer expectations were never just financial. They also came to insist on overt professionalism, to be served by well-qualified, technically competent staff. And that professionalism does have a cost implications. We had to make sure our people were trained to do the jobs that they needed to do. And by the same token, customers now expect their banks to behave with prudence and professionalism, and significant numbers are prepared to pay a fair price for a good service, despite the many low-cost digital alternatives. Looking back 10 years from where we are now in 2025, it's easy to forget how radical was the revolution that we all went through. Today's transparency about banking costs seemed unthinkable then, and now we take it for granted that, much like other retailers, we must tell our customers exactly what our banking tariffs are. At the time, I thought this seemed a huge change, but we also knew we'd never rebuild trust without complete transparency. And let's not forget how much this transformation also changed our own view of ourselves. At BSB, it wasn't just about refusing to grow market share on a pretense of free banking, it also meant not deluding ourselves anymore. We have also had to accept that our tariff of charges would prevent us from any longer being a universal bank that is dealing with everyone regardless of the size of their wealth or assets. We accepted the reality is that not all customers will be able or will even want to afford our banking services. We recognise that our kind of banking excludes some and arguably the most needy segments of society. That has not, and it should not, quarantine those people from our active concern as a bank that is conscious of our social obligations. That's why we focused much energy at BSB on our imaginative support for a network of credit unions active among our less well-endowed communities. The cornerstone of our corporate social responsibility strategy is its aim to encourage others who are better able to provide less costly routes to the basic banking services that are needed by the poorest. At BSB, we're not a utility, we're a commercial organisation, and we know there are times when we can have to tell people, we can't help you, but we can point you to someone who will. That too is a basic principle of fair treatment. Looking back 10 years from our 2025 vantage point to date, we can see more clearly than ever that the key lesson we've learned is how to balance this transparency against our broader social justice agenda. Many of us will remember the old mantra, a branch in every town. Today's banking dynamic has shaped quite a different mantra, honesty before universality. That's where we're at today, colleagues, and it's against that background that we now meet to consider today's three key strategic issues. Firstly, how can we improve our customer satisfaction with the quality and price of our banking services? Second, which top-ranked retail organisations best exhibit those characteristics of service and customer loyalty that we most admire, and against which we now seek to benchmark our own performance? Third, to fulfill our own social mission, how adequate is our corporate social responsibility strategy to advance the interests of those who cannot afford to bank with us? Is there more that we can do, and is there more that we should do? Thank you for listening. The authors of the Ethical Challenge series are Simon Thompson, who is the Chief Executive of the Chartered Banker Institute, Giles Cuthbert, who is the Managing Director of the Chartered Banker Institute, and Chris Plato, who is the Consulting Editor. Thank you for listening. You can find more ethical dilemmas and case studies on our Ethics, Culture and Conduct Toolkit. You can also share your views on one of our many discussion forums. Don't forget to log the time that you spend as professionalism and ethics on your CPD logbook. Thank you.